Well, perhaps first you could just tell me your name and the organization that you direct.
Jorge Restrepo from CERAC, the Conflict Analysis Resources Center here in Bogota, Colombia.
Could you explain a little bit what is CERAC and what does it do?
This is an organization that will belong easier to the class of a think tank. In that sense, it's a research center, a center of studies, which specializes in the study of violence, with a view towards violence reduction, especially by providing information analysis that will guide policies, public policies for violence reduction.
And why was CERAC created?
You see, maybe the main reason is that in Latin America, as well as in Colombia, of course, we thought that there was a space for the professional study of violence from the social sciences viewpoint in order to inform policies. I mean, in very many cases, debates surrounding violence in Colombia and Latin America were hot-headed debates, usually guided by ideological preconceptions and political positions, which are, of course, fine and legitimate, but in very many occasions were not based in sound evidence and transparent methodologies that will guide interventions.
What would be some of the major achievements that you could point to in your work?
That's a difficult question. That's a very difficult question. I mean, achievements. I reckon that we have started to walk through a very difficult path that leads to try to improve the way that we measure violence in order to try to see what is the extent, the nature, the characteristics of violence. I think we have evolved, we have moved forward on that debate. I reckon we have qualified and helped qualify the debate on violence and the conflict, in particular in the case of Colombia. And finally, I will say that we have been able to create a capacity to better understand the nature, the reasons, and the effects of violence in Colombia and in other countries in Latin America.
What are some of the major difficulties or challenges that you face in your work?
In very many occasions is to try to dispel the preconceptions to which, that usually guides people in these debates. It is very difficult to engage in debates, in dialogues, without those preconceptions. These are by nature very political issues, but people in some circumstances and at some institutions are not willing or open to dialogue or to reckon that maybe they are not right about their positions in the debate surrounded by violence. And just to give you an idea in terms of victims' assistance or the size of victimization or the groups which are mostly victimized by this. Usually people find very difficult to yield to the opinion of the others or to recognize that maybe they're wrong or simply need to take into account the views of others.
And what opportunities do you see for working together with other organizations around the world who are interested in violence monitoring?
Of course, we can learn a lot. We have a lot to learn. But also we might have things to share about practices, circumstances that we have lived through in the past. For example, in terms of security, in terms of the politicization of debates. And I will say, of course, a comparative agenda on the different manifestations of violence is on the books. I mean, we are very interested in continuing studying violence, its nature, its characteristics, why it happens, and how it can be ended. And that is by nature a comparative research agenda.
And my final question, do you have some hope or aspiration for what this kind of work could have achieved in 5 or 10 years from now?
I reckon the goal, the really ultimate goal, would be violence reduction. I see, for example, that reconciliation has its meaning in violence reduction, in stopping the cycles of violence. And in particular in this area of Latin America, stopping those forms of violence, reigniting or transforming into new, more vicious forms of victimization, group massive victimization will be key for the future.
Thank you very much for talking to Oxford Research Group.
Pleasure.